lot of you, because Beacon House have worked extremely hard to put this wonderful session, this School of Tomorrow session together. Beacon House is a leading school group in the world, and indeed is operating in as many as 8, 9, or even 10 countries. And indeed, it is a organization that really takes its social consciousness very seriously, and this is an outcome of that. I'd like to welcome our audience and say to you that you have come on to what I hope will be a very, very exciting and compelling session. It's important, please, that I introduce our panelists who are with us today, and I'll begin with the lady first in old-fashioned manner. And so in Rosan Bosch, at the Rosenborg Bosch Studio, we have the founder and creative director of that studio, and an internationally renowned, internationally renowned individual whose designs and inspiring perspectives on learning spaces for the future is her hallmark. She has worked with national and international authorities around the world to transform education, and I've had first-hand experience of that with her, and it really is a most exciting and inspirational way of doing things. And I'm sure the Vitra schools in Sweden and the award-winning Sheikh Zayed Private Academy in Abu Dhabi, as well as the Ministry of Education in Argentina, have benefited enormously from both her experience, her creativity, and her desire to really take schools to another level in terms of their building and operations. Mr. Takaharu Tezuka is an award-winning architect, president of the Tezuka Architects, and of course, as a result of his academic capabilities, is to professor at the Tokyo City University. Takaharu established the Tezuka Architects really quite some time ago in 1994, so he's been going for a number of years now, and has obviously extensive experience designing spaces for children. The space for which he's best known and international award winner is that of the Fuji Kindergarten. It has been named as the best school in the world by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and UNESCO as well. Mr. Takaharu's TED Talk, of which I've seen a recording, was pronounced the 7th best in the world in 2015 for its viewability at that time. In Mr. Baba Habib, we have the co-founder and CEO of the famous Portfolio School in New York City. Baba is a tech entrepreneur who co-founded the No Incorporated, an ed tech company in which he reimagined how students consume content. That company was acquired by Intel Corporation later on, and implementing innovative solutions in classrooms globally. Working with schools internationally, Baba reevaluated how to serve each child's creativity, which then led to the now renowned Portfolio School in New York, a school of complete difference from most of the schools in our world. And it has made that school one of particular interest, both here in Pakistan and worldwide. Mr. Jose Papa, the chairman of the BET Global Education Council, is also with us. And Jose has led the acquisition of Educar, which is what is now the BET Brazil, and the premier education event in the whole of Latin America. He was until recently the CEO of the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity and was CEO in the WGSN, which is the world's top trend forecaster. Presently, Jose is chairman of BET and co-founder of Trace Academia. Then, rather down market of this extraordinary set of abilities and people who have publications who have books, who have taken their jobs to another level, comes me. I am Clive Barnes, the head of school at TNS Beacon House. My experience spans a very long period of international education, indeed over 40 years now. And I'm currently the head of the school of the TNS Beacon House, where I've been for the last decade. That's enough about me. I've taught and worked in and run 5 schools in Africa, the Indian Ocean, Middle East, and South Asia now. And it's nearly time to retire, but here I am, very proudly moderating this exciting little operation here. So let's move on. And I would ask that we get each of our panelists to introduce themselves. And this is something which obviously will be very interesting, because a couple of them are going to divert into showing us some screen time and what they've been doing. So let's move on to that. And can I start again with Rosan Bosch and listen to her take on what we're doing here, and then we'll get on to the nitty-gritty of the particular program that we're offering today. So Rosan, please.
Hello, Clive, and hello, everybody. I'm also honored to be here today and to speak with all these invisible people out there. Shortly, I am the creative director and founder of Rosenborg Studio. And we are a studio that's actually focusing. We're multidisciplinary. We work with design, with architecture, also contemporary art, communication, pedagogy. We are focusing on thinking and creating environments that, as we say, maximize the human learning and development potential. And I think we do so is because we realize that today, in a way, when we talk about school or we talk about learning institutions, that we're actually not really, creating the best environment for children or for people to develop and to learn. And I think that especially lately in the situation we are living right now, that we are seeing that, we need to develop skills that are not addressed in a traditional school context. For example, we talk about, being creative. We talk about, having the abilities of collaborating, of reinventing ourselves. And I think that, this kind of change the focus in our societies towards, a different understanding of what we actually want our children to develop as abilities has led us to rethink what is a school and how should a school function and how do we actually create this very inspiring learning environments. Now, I have very little time, so I'm going to do this quite short, but I would like to share an image because I think that a lot of people talk about innovation education. A lot of people talk about creating environments that, in a way, help children to develop, skills to know how to learn so they can continue developing themselves throughout their whole life. And a lot of people talk about these things and we say the same words, but in our case, they actually mean something very different. So what I will do is that I will share my screen now. And I don't know if, I hope it works as usual in this kind of environments. It's also about, being able to do this. So Clive, can you see my my screen?
I can. Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So this is, for example, a school we have designed. This is in Spain, in Zaragoza. And I think that I would like to show this image because it shows a school which allows children to, roam around and to go on a discovery tour themselves. And I think that this is very important because when we talk about designing different environments that actually enable children to learn in a different way, we're also addressing their independence and their ability to go around and decide themselves what to do and when to do it. And this is the biggest problem in a way when we talk about designing learning environments, that it's a combination not only of design, it's a combination of rethinking our pedagogies, our methodologies, our organizational model. How do we structurize the day? Where are children? How are they organized according to adults? And then, of course, the design that allows them. And this is another image of another school we've done. This is at the Western Academy in Beijing. And just to show that these are environments that allow not only for different way of learning, they do also allow for imagination. And this brings me a little bit to a topic I think is important, because right now during COVID, we are seeing so many children suddenly confined to their home, and they're sitting at home at a chair in front of a computer. And we're forgetting that learning is not only about sitting down and listening and watching a screen. Learning is about activating your mind and your body. So as a result, or as a kind of as a product, what we did is that we started to make lately a product which we send out, and we called it the Wonder Do It Yourself, which was actually a school for children, a homeschool, so they could iterate and experiment and have a moment of empowerment at home, so they could actually kind of build their own school. So what you're seeing is something that we did especially for COVID, because I know that's something we will talk about. And we kind of felt that all these children so frustrated at home and, kind of totally going back into the focus on learning, that learning was sitting on a chair behind the screen. We had to do something, and we felt like, okay, let's try to then, instead of talking about designing schools, sending something, a possibility for children to have a little environment of power in their home, and to actually activate again this kind of more playful approach to their learning environment. Because I believe that learning is playing. And we as human beings, we are so lucky that we have a DNA, in our body of play and of curiosity. And it's this basis as human beings of wanting to play, this curiosity to want to discover the world, that enables us to learn. So as an architect, that's what we do. We try to create environments that stimulate your natural curiosity in discovering the world and starting to, develop your abilities for learning how to learn. Well, that was it, Clive. I think I did my introduction. I don't know how much time I'm doing. I guess it took me 2 minutes. So,
that's very nice indeed. I think you really encapsulated a lot of what we are here to do in this particular session. And you do your usual vitality. It's fantastic. Thanks, Rosan. And can we move on to Mr. Takaharu Tezuka? And as you know, this gentleman has the greatest accolade of the finest or best school in the world. So, Mr. Takaharu, we're very pleased to have you with us. Carry on, please.
Thank you. Just I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Okay. So, PowerPoint. What do you know? So can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. This one. Maybe this. Hold on. How to do that? This one? Can you see my screen? No?
No, I'm sorry. Not yet.
Not yet? Not this one? No, it's something else. Button.
Yeah, nothing yet.
Share screen? No, I can't share the screen. Hold on. I think just my sharing screen is stopped now.
There is a share screen button at the bottom.
Yes, I did, but somehow last time, just when I pressed the button, it came up quite simply. But this time, it's not coming up. Somehow, it's a button is not working. Huh? Hold on.
Okay, Mr. Tezuka, can we?
Let's do it again. 1, 2, share screen.
Yeah, Rosan, if you could just give a few instructions there quickly.
Application window. Okay.
Sorry, if you do share screen, a window pops up, and in this window you have to take the second one where it says, looking at your apps. You have to choose the second window, and then you can see all the windows that are open on your computer.
No, not this. No, this time it's
not.
There
it is. It's there.
Is it coming?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's coming?
There we are. Yes. Carry on, Mr. Tezuka, please.
Okay, thank you. basically, and everyone thinks I'm donuts design architect, and it's actually I'm designing more than the donuts. But at this time, I think people want my donuts, so I talk about donuts first. And I think you have seen this project. Kids are running on top of the building, and also interesting to know that underneath there's no partition between the classrooms, so everything is open. And the most important thing is that all movements are spontaneous. They are like sheep in the field. They keep running. So instead of teaching, we are trying to make them learning. Okay. There's one more thing I want to show you. This is interesting. Okay. When I show this, sometimes people get upset because people think kids are getting wet. So one of the German scientists came. Whoa, these kids are getting wet. So what did you do? And the principal said, "Oh, in Japan, usually kids are waterproofed. So you can wash them. What do you do in Germany? It's quite simple." So that's my point. People think kids are weak, but actually, they survive. This Corona thing. So I don't think not so much changes as a human being. And there's one more thing I want to share you. This is interesting. This is Bali Island. It's very noisy. The noise beep is from jungle. But when I recorded this, and I couldn't hear that noise. But when I played that ritual in Tokyo, and that the noise was there, and the scientist said that in the jungle, actually our brain cancels the noise, and we can listen to the ritual, and our body is doing same. Our breathing, and the heartbeat are cancelled. Just we don't hear these, but when you dive under the water, you can hear your body noise. But same thing is happening to the kids. So it means, we need to be a part of environment. What I'm saying is silent and dry and no bias environment is not for us. That is my comment for this discussion. So I think it's good enough.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tezuka. And also congratulations on your accolade there. It's wonderful. All right, so Babur, it's your turn. And we look forward to hearing a little something about your famous school.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is so inspiring to be here with some legends of designing schools. Let's see. So, as Clive mentioned, my background is technology, but my last company, which myself and my co-founder started, was in 2008, and we became the Kindle for textbooks at that time. And if you remember, 2008, 2009 was when there was a big sort of like push towards getting tablets, producing tablets, and one of the big use cases was that we were going to have a lot of educational use cases for these devices. And that was a 4-year journey. We ended up being acquired by Intel, and through Intel Education specifically, we did big technology deployments in schools across the globe. And through that sort of whole process, I felt I learned a lot. I learned, I went back into schools after 30 years. I hadn't stepped into a school. I didn't have kids at that time myself, so I stepped back into schools, and this is a common theme amongst us educators now, that schools tend to look and feel the same as they were 100 years ago. Maybe not the ones designed by Rosan and Taka, but others certainly look very similar, especially our public schools and a lot of traditional private schools as well. So I had the good fortune of talking to a lot of educators, thought leaders in education as well, and felt like the right thing to do is to reimagine what schools are. And if we were to start a school from scratch and not be encumbered by tradition, not be encumbered by inertia, what would schools look like? And that's the journey we've taken in the last 4 years in New York City. We're a small school in Tribeca. We believe in sort of micro spaces. So each campus holds about 80 to 90 students. We have 2 types of campuses, a K through 5 campus, and then 6th grade to 12th grade campus. And one of the core principles, we have a couple of core principles. One of them is that we're small by design, and that enables a different kind of learning. So, as a network of schools, we may be large, but each campus is small, only 80 to 90 students. And then we believe that what students need to do is not just learn, but apply their learning. So a big push for us is the application of learning, and whatever they're learning and however they're learning, that has to be contextualized by application. So that's sort of the design principle of our school space as well. And I want to show a couple of slides now to sort of underline how we've done that in our school. So let me share my screen. And let's see. Let me know if you guys can see this.
Yes.
Great. So if you look at the slide, what I'm showing in these 3 pictures is the front of the school. So the front of the school itself, as you enter, is actually a space where kids are working and building something. So as kids enter every day, for example, right, the thing that comes top of the mind is the application of learning, right? And so the woodwork shop is not sort of relegated to the basement. It's not sort of hidden from the view. It's not like something that you go for half an hour every week to actually learn one particular woodworking skill, right? It's front and center to the school. And when we were putting this together, some educators came in and they said, well, you know what, this is going to be really bad, because for your prospective parents who are going to come into the school, they're going to see a very dirty, messy entrance to the school. And I said, if any parent considers this to be a dirty, messy entrance or a dirty, messy school and doesn't want their kid to be in there, then this school is certainly not for them. It's all about what you learn, you apply, and that's how we design our space as well. So let me show you a couple of other images around this. This is again another day where in fact, what they're doing here is the unit theme for about two and a half months was to build a guinea pig house, and because they wanted a class pet. And through that project, we learned about domestication of animals and domestication of vegetation as well, like farmlands and things like that. And because of this project, we make it very interdisciplinary. And with the project front and center, we are able to actually connect science, literacy, humanities, all of that together in this unit. So I'll stop over there. There's a lot to discuss and a lot to talk about, but I'm excited to be here.
Thank you very much indeed, Babur. A really nice concept there. All right, on to you, Jose. You're coming in from a different angle. I know that you run one of the biggest shows in the world for school technology and resources. So I'm sure you're going to give us an angle which is quite interesting and not necessarily in line with everything else we've heard today. But thank you very much for being with us, Jose.
I thank you. And actually, this is a true honor to be with all of you, with this audience. Thank you, Clive. But actually, everything is intertwined. So technology and humanity, they are following a very unique path now. And, I am a natural optimist. And I think that what happened with COVID was a true privilege. And why I say a privilege? Because we were able to see an exponential revolution in the thinking, in the process, in the strategy, in the vision of how we are looking into what we should expect the development and the education of the future to be.
I agree.
I truly believe that what we've seen in the past 3 months was more important than what we've seen in 5 years. And this has forced us, and we are dwelling now with this idea of what are true core competencies that we would like to see for the children of the future. Mm-hmm. And this is mesmerizing. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, because whilst we were just touching into ideas of architecture, how technology embraces our very own humanity, what should we do to interact the right way, how do we engage the right way, how do teachers react to this? Everything happened in a moment. So now what we are seeing is that we need to understand the kind of a core competencies that will define the children of the future. So this idea of character, communication, creativity, citizenship, collaboration, critical thinking, that we're following very much a linear process. And we thought our mentality was very linear. And now everyone has this idea of exponentiality, because we understand that the core competencies that ultimately led the children for the last century no longer will work in the world that we live. So this is fascinating. This idea of what we call deep learning, and how traditional learning that has set the schooling system for 100 years, now what it means in the future and how we are setting the future. So it's fascinating how we intersect then the advantage of requiring technology with the humanity that the teacher brings. But everything is student-led, where the teachers, they frame the experience, where the environment frames the experience, but it is student-led. So whilst learning was very much impersonal, now everything connects in a very mindful way. So the student interest and voice is heard in a very compelling way, and it will be in a compelling way. So it was not clear what was the student agenda in the linear way that we thought for 100 years. And now suddenly we see that we are deepening the human desire to connect with others. And actually, this will change our society, because finally we see that purpose is the new competitive advantage. So I think that what we've seen in the last 3 months will ultimately propel individuals that will be more connected with technology, that will acknowledge the value of humanity, that will understand the value of their respective environments. And I think it is a profound shift of our mindset. So it's a very unique moment that we are experiencing. That's why this conversation is so unique. And that's why myself representing an event and a show that engages technology in education, ultimately we are engaging everything. So architecture, humanity, technology, everything now is together, is assembled. So it's a very special and unique moment.
Thank you very much indeed, Jose. I must say that much of what you said there, we try and inculcate at TNS here in Lahore, Pakistan. But thank you very much indeed. A great, diversion for us there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of why we're here. And I'm going to read out to you an abstract, which I think you've already seen, but it's going to be the basis for our discussion and the driving questions. So, in designing schools for tomorrow and reimagining spaces and structures, as schools invest in extending their physical structures into intangible dimensions of technologies, they have to look more holistically as to how they design learning environments for both physical and blended approaches. In creating modular, enduring, adaptable, and accommodating spaces, we need to reflect on what tomorrow's learning will look like. How do you respond to this statement is really what I'm asking you all to do today. I'd like you all to, in fact, think about how you would react to this in terms of your own experience and beliefs about school spaces. We'll do this very as quickly as we can before we then move on to 3 driving questions that we have, which I'd also like to throw around before we go on to Q&A. But let's again start with Rosan and see how she reacts to this statement.
Well, I think that, and it's a little bit like as I don't know if it's Jose or Jose just said. I think that at this moment in these times, what we have seen, apart from that, we have an ability of change and we are much more creative and we actually can change very fast. Another thing is also that we have experienced lately very strongly that on one side, I think that it's this kind of idea of that technology, there are certain things it can do and there are certain things it can't. Yeah. And one of the things it can't do is, replace this kind of, the collaboration as in co-creation. The thing is when you connect with human beings in a specific way. And for me, as an architect or as a designer, I think this is very strongly related to that, this kind of, for a long time, we have been thinking of learning as something we do only with our minds, but we don't only learn with our mind. Just like Taka or earlier also was, showing, we learn with our entire body, and I think that this is, so somehow I don't have the answer, this is not going to be a statement. I already did some talking earlier. I think it's more, for me, I think it's interesting to think of, okay, we know what we can do digitally. We know where technology can come in and help us, but there are also certain parts that it cannot. Yeah. And we feel this like deep, almost like lack of human contact, especially the people I speak to, which have been like enclosed and incarcerated, I would say, in their apartments now for over 3 months in South America. And the children that have been there and cannot play with other children because they're so unlucky that they don't have any brothers and sisters and so on and so forth, So then suddenly this deep need or, this huge desire of contact with other human beings, and it becomes so clear of where we do need to interact with each other. And here I think it's very interesting to think of, how can we then create the learning environments of the future, focusing on this part, the parts we cannot do with technology, where we actually, kind of stimulate each other and iterate each other and experiment each other and actually drive each other in a kind of a social context, to a higher level of learning, because we do know that we actually learn much more intensive in collaboration as in co-creation, not as in coordination. I think there's a distinguish, because we talk always about collaboration, but most of the digital things we do, they are coordinated kind of collaborative activities, not always, depends, but the Zoom meetings and stuff like that, and they're not about co-creating. So I think that what we'll see is that schools in the future will focus on everything that where we actually need to be together and where we interact with each other and where we use all our senses and activate them.
Thank you very much indeed, Rosan. Would you like to make a contribution there, please, Tezuka?
Yes. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly.
So 2021 April, I'm going to start a new elementary school with a few teachers. Actually, not many teachers. It's completely new style. No classroom, no grade. So there is no first year, second year, third year, fourth year. And each child get iPad with a new program so they can learn by themselves. And so, teacher doesn't need to make a grade at all, just, score at all. But teacher has a much more important role. Their role is teaching society and also curating the children. So what classroom is doing a kind of project-based learning. For example, well, we ask them to make very nice, maybe possibly chicken rice. Okay, chicken rice. I hope you are not vegetarian. Chicken rice. And then students go to farm to find the best chickens. Okay, and then they learn where they can find such a kind of products, and then they get the chicken. Okay, and then they learn how to solidify the eggs. Okay, and they need to learn chemistry. Okay, and then they need to learn how to do good cooking. Okay, and timing, and also they need to learn how to collaborate. So a teacher's role is not making difference of the children. Teacher role is kind of curation, the coordinating people. So it becomes a kind of small society. And I hope you will see the result in a year. It's completely new idea. It's going to happen.
Sure is.
As I said, this opportunity is giving us fantastic chance. New education is going to start in Japan, place called Seto. Please look at it.
Good luck to you in Japan with that, and I'm sure there'll be many takers throughout the world. But Babur, what is your take on all of this?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point in time. I mean, I think Jose put it really well in the sense that the things that we thought would take years to sort of implement or years to test out, we've been able to do in point in time, like 3 months, and there's been a seismic shift in how we think about certain things in education. And coming from a technology background and starting then a school which is very much hands-on learning. It's not mainly about sitting in front of a computer and learning through that. It's actually applying what you learn outside of computers and stuff. I think the somehow this conversation becomes like very sort of one dimension in the sense that we have to talk about technology, then we have to talk about not technology, and I think it needs to be a little bit more organic. There's certain things that technology does really well, extremely well. I see my own 5-year-old daughter, I see kindergartners with her, and they're able to use today's technology in a way. They're digital natives, like even in this COVID environment, my daughter is a single child. She's doing FaceTime with her friends, which boggles my mind on how social they are on it, right? Obviously, that does not replace them meeting in a playground. I mean, that is the gold standard of socializing, right? Meeting in a playground. But they're able to do this. And there's certain things that technology helps in learning really well too. So when we're designing spaces, I want to bring it back to our panel today, right? Is when we're designing spaces, we have to design spaces for both social interaction, collaboration, projects, places where kids are working together really closely, but also where they're using technology so that they can learn at their own pace. It can be more personalized, exactly what kind of learning they're doing. And we've seen that in our school. Like, we have open spaces where kids are doing projects, right? But then we also need spaces where kids who have done some, have learned about multiplication, for example, and that was an online session that they had with, some online program, IXL or Khan Academy or something like that. And then they want to upload their work and, talk about their work, right? So we have to create these sort of mini booths for them to actually go and record their voice. Because now they're actually putting it in their portfolio, and that portfolio goes home every day, and the showcase. So we have to actually design for that as well. Like, how do you design small compartments where they can go in and actually record their voices while woodworking is going on in the background, right? So those are the kind of challenges. But I feel like, technology is here with us. It's not going to go away. We should use it, and we should use it to the best we can in education,
Thank you very much, Baba. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Jose, after your very inspiring introduction, what's your take?
Look, I think that from what Takaharu just said, imagine if he proposed something like this maybe a year ago, there would be so many people questioning and eventually bombarding him, and eventually, how could you be courageous enough to say this? And suddenly,
I agree.
3 months, we are open for ideas. We are open to say, but why shouldn't we follow this path? Why should we believe that students, they are receivers of knowledge and not that they are inquisitive? And I believe that we've been, as I said, in the last century, in a way of thinking where students are receiving knowledge. Not many times they process the right way, or not many times they know how to process it the right way. And this is not just how they receive from the environment, from the teachers, from the where they are set, from their peers, etc., from the technology they have access. But there was not much inquisitiveness. There was not much the idea of inquiring and building knowledge in the way that they using creativity, using their own paths, their own talents. So I think this will dramatically change, and we will adapt. To Rosan's point, we will adapt the environments to what this new ambience and the new expectations will set. So we all need to be very courageous now to be open, open for ideas, open for discussions, for debates. We need to really challenge the status quo. And I'm not just criticizing the status quo, because there are many elements of what we've built that will be the foundations of what we'll set for the future. But we here need to be very courageous on how we use this experience and the moment that we are at to ultimately propel what will be then the school of tomorrow, as we really expect the debate to be here, you see? So again, I reiterate what I just mentioned. This is a very special time we are at, and we need to be responsible and courageous enough to understand that the changes that we'll make from this very special moment.
Thank you very much indeed. That really does sum it up. We're a bit tight on time because we do want to give people the opportunity to ask questions. So I'm going to look at the three driving questions that I have in a group, in a bunch, and then you can pick on one and decide to give us your response to what design opportunities are there for changes post-COVID in the way spaces are used in schools. The second one is, how do expectations for a student-centered learning experience shape the development of an ecology of learning spaces? And thirdly, what type of learning spaces enhance student engagement? Who would like to start with one of those three? Rosan? Yes,
You always make me. You always make me
Oh, no,
start.
okay.
I thought maybe for a change, have somebody else, and then I'll react.
Barbara would like to start.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rosan, you're right. Carry on, Barbara.
Yes, I think for me, I think the second one, how do expectations for a student-centered learning experience shape the development of an ecology of learning spaces? And for us, we've done designed and lived in our new space for the first year. For 3 years we were in a small space, and now this past year we moved into a bigger space, which is still small. I mean, this is New York City, so it's still small. It's only about 10,000 square feet. So yeah, just to set your mind on what I'm talking about. I think to us, and we haven't still gotten there yet, but to me, an important part of student-centered learning and the expectations around space design is this, that there need to be places in the school that students can take and make their own for a certain amount of time while they're building a particular project, Like in our previous space, the front of the school was taken by students to do woodworking. They were doing it to do another project around a puppet show. They've used that space for other things as well. But the idea should be that students can take a particular part of the school, make their own for a couple of months, configure it as they want, and then give it back to the school. So reconfigurable spaces in a meaningful way is so important, and we think about this day in, day out, and we still haven't figured that out yet, how to exactly do it. People talk about very sort of flimsy partitions and things like that, but is there a better way of doing it so that we can in fact actually make it really work?
Thank you so much. Let's move on then to the design opportunities here, changes post-COVID in the way spaces are used in the schools. Who'd like to talk about that?
I can compliment quickly, because I'm going to leave space for the ones that really know this, which is this whole group here. If we were able to actually embrace globally the ideas that just the three of my very honored peers here have, this will make the schooling system better, because I think that learning is very impersonal today. And I think what we need to create are environments that meaningfully connect, meaningfully they embrace the student interest. They meaningfully embrace students' voices. And I think this is what my esteemed colleagues here have been doing. So if we, I think, listen to them more in a global level, things will be progressing the right path.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Jose. And then finally, what type of learning spaces enhance student engagement? I know both Rosan and Tezuka would have thoughts on this one. Rosan?
Well, I would like to actually, answer a bit more broad and not so specific, because also on some of the other things the panelists were saying.
Yeah.
I really sincerely think that, if we talk about the future, I think that our hope, that, we will focus on this change of mindset, which we now have experienced, yes? So that we somehow can take with us, this sensation of creativity and actually feeling this empowerment, that we can change and we can do this fast, especially, in the school context. And also allowing, and this is very important, for this kind of creativity to continue, not only with the students, but also with the teachers and the whole organization. Because I also think that, yes, we should, of course, put the learner at the center, but the school is like an ecosystem. It's a cosmos of people, of everybody. And I think this kind of creativity, which is the in the system, which is right now, this fantastic, experience we have experienced. And there I would have a hope. I hope what we not only, react on it, by adapting to this new situation and taking just the learnings. Everybody talks about the new normal, and I'm just like, I don't want to go to a new normal. I want no normal anymore. I want to go beyond normal. I would like us not only to adapt, but actually to challenge our way of thinking and realizing that we can optimize ourselves as human beings and our learning potential. And we can create an environment where, for example, we start to wonder about, how do we use our intuition for learning? Just to say something a little bit more complicated, not only acting, yes, project-based learning, fantastic, but let's just go one step above, because we could do so much more. I really believe that we human beings, we do not unleash our full learning potential, thinking about everything we could. And my dream is that we then create an environment which not only allows us to really explode or, enhance our learning potential, but also creating a consciousness about this with our children that are part of these ecosystems, so they truly can actually kind of accelerate their own learning in the future. And I think that is done. And no, there are no right answers. And that's the beauty of it. If we can have schools where both children and students feel invited in the future to keep on this pace of experimentation, then we are really on the right track. So I hope that we keep this creativity, this sense of wow and wonder in our system, and also, in a way, the ability to address challenges.
Thank you very much. Tezuka, this is a couple of words from you, please.
Okay. I have a dream of nostalgic future. We call it nostalgic future. Future supported by the latest technology, but it's about sharing of a human being. I think key is sharing. Education used to be about competition, how you can get better score, but it doesn't matter anymore because education is not going to be about comparison, how we can coexist. And in that kind of situation, we need to share the skills, what we are good at. So some people are good at music, some people are good at astronomy only, some people are very good at cooking. And these are problem in school before. Now it's not going to be problem anymore. So, and in that kind of situation, school is going to be really common space. The school we are designing for April 2021 is about common space, huge common space that has a kitchen, as science lab, everything in one space, and a place to sleep. And we learn how to live in diversity. And we don't use just only Japanese language. We try to use different languages. We are trying to get the different age groups, and also we are trying to get different race, different skin colors. And I think this world is going to be one. That is our future I'm looking for.
Wonderful, wonderful thought. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left to take some questions. And one of them that struck me was, and it's got a lot of truth to it as well, is were the last 100 years of learning spaces ineffective? They led to the great thinkers, philosophers, Nobel laureates, sports stars and artists, musicians. Will new buildings, competencies, technologies produce the same or better? Who'd like to respond to that?
I can try to do very quick, okay?
Okay.
Not ineffective, because we are here debating the next 100 years. And if it was not for this past century, we wouldn't be here. The thing was that technology evolved in an exponential way. So if we saw the linear process of the evolution of technology took 8 years ultimately to eventually reach to one point. And then suddenly we've been seeing through exponentiality the evolution of technology in a much faster space. That's why we need to adapt to the new reality of this exponential thinking.
Yes.
Absolutely right. Okay, the second one is, can you speak about outdoor learning environments and how we can leverage greater access to the outdoors during this time in education? Who'd like to respond to that one? Yes, Mr. Takaharu.
Okay, my idea is not, we shouldn't change. We should let kids to touch the soil, because COVID-19 is not coming from soil. We have a lot of allies in the soil. It's lots of bacteria, and that is what we need to give them. So we should. I don't think we should change. So
Thank you very much indeed. All right.
Clive, can I comment as well?
Yes, please do, Rosan.
Yeah, because I just would like to say something coming from Denmark, because we've seen, children go back to school already after Corona, after Easter. And what we would see is, because schools couldn't have the same groups inside of them, we could see that, all these small groups of 10 to 15 students suddenly started to populate the entire city. And it just gave so much joy, and it's extremely interesting to see that it not only gave much joy to, us adult people crossing the city and seeing small groups of children everywhere in the parks and the streets and, all places all around, because they couldn't be in their buildings. We also know that it has motivated, students extremely. And this is just a very interesting takeaway, I think, from this period, that we realize that all spaces are learning spaces, and trying to think of that a specific space should be the best learning space, I think that is actually wrong. It's about you learn everywhere, and we could just look out of the window and see the entire world. Everything is a learning space, and we should see that potential. So that was just a little comment. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Then the last question is, what about those students who cannot afford high-cost learning, like use internet facility, e-learning, etc.? What about, in other words, that rich and poor gap that, are we looking after sort of average income, whatever? Okay, who'd like to respond to that?
I can do that.
Yeah, do please.
I think if you think about, and this kind of ties in with the 100 years of past education as well, I think technology, in fact, in the end, is going to reduce this gap. Yeah. Yes, high-speed internet is expensive right now. Tablets may be expensive right now, but the cost of, putting a very sort of upscale school is way higher than the technological costs that we are talking about. And I think in the end, in fact, actually, technology is going to be a great leveler of the quality of education, rather than creating a gap. We may think that internet costs very high, but in fact, actually, building a high-end school is out of reach for, except for 0.1% of the population, it's out of reach for everybody, right? So I think technology is actually going to be the reducer of this gap.
Good. Thank you very much indeed. Well, look, we didn't have enough time. There was a very good question about environments in 2020. What should be included in an environment as a third teacher, and for how long? Would anybody like to say one sentence about that?
I think labor.
Oh, go on then. The lady can have the last comment. Rosan?
Well, I don't know if it's the last comment. I just would like to say that I think that the term third teacher is on its way out, to be honest. And I think that we have the first teacher, which is a teacher, and the second teacher, which is your pal, or you can turn them around. And then the third teacher should be technology. And then the fourth teacher could be our physical environment, but seen as the world that surrounds us. I don't think that we should kind of open up and not think of school as only sort of a kind of a building as a solution. School is a framework where you can develop yourself and you can change the bricks of this framework. So I don't know. I don't think there's one answer to that question. It's more about seeing the possibilities, as they always say, and a change of mindset. That's also why when we work with design, we don't just work with design as a chair or table. We're actually trying to talk about a change of system and a way of doing it, you know. And so for me, and it also means that you can make schools in different types of economy, because it's about thinking in a different way about education and about learning. It's not necessarily, you know, the cladding on the wall that makes you learn better or less. So
Absolutely.
first teacher instead of third teacher.
Okay, thanks, Rosan. Thanks for putting that in perspective. And that brings us to the end, actually. And I need to thank our very talented and forward-thinking panelists, who all agree that you know, education and thereby its spaces need to change. And indeed, a number of you sitting here, excuse me, today are doing just that. With that wonderful reflection by Jose as well on how we need to move forward with the advantages of COVID being really very you know, special at this time. So thank you to you. Thank you to our audience. Loads of questions have come through. And of course, I'd like to also, on behalf of Beacon House, say to you all that there is an opportunity for you to continue watching these sessions. They're live from continuing today until the 12th of July. And we'd like you to see you at as many sessions as possible. So again, thank you, lady and gentlemen. It's been very good seeing you and working with you. And I hope one day that I shall meet